Indian security forces carrying out anti-terrorism operations in Jammu and Kashmir are a regular phenomenon. Indian security forces have been constantly engaged in a fight against terrorists from Pakistan on a mission to wreak havoc and create terror in Jammu and Kashmir. These terrorists are trained, financed, armed, and radicalized in Pakistan, who recently tasted success after the FATF removed it from its grey list. The FATF, by earlier putting Pakistan on its grey list, had limited resources available to the country to increase its financing, which often found its way into the hands of terrorists in the country. After its two-day plenary in Paris, the FATF declared that Pakistan had fully completed the 34-point action plan it had earlier established. However, experts say that this is simply a statistical, bureaucratic exercise which Pakistan has successfully finalized.
This is one of those statistical, bureaucratic exercises where if you tick a certain checklist, it doesn't matter what you've done. It just shows that you've somehow controlled terrorism and therefore, terror funding, and therefore you're out of the list, whereas we know that Pakistan would have found alternate routes of funding that same terror. This is a classic case of how viruses tend to outpace antibiotics. This is one of those cases where slow bureaucracies will never be able to compare with the nimbleness of terror organizations and terror funding.
The United States has identified Pakistan as a base of operations and target of numerous armed, non-state terrorist groups, some of which have existed since the 1980s. According to the Congressional Research Service, notable terrorists and other groups operating in Pakistan are of 5 broad but non-exclusive types. They include globally oriented, Afghanistan-oriented, India-oriented, domestically oriented, and sectarian, i.e. anti-Shias. The U.S. State Department's Country Reports on Terrorism 2020, which were released in December 2021, note that Pakistan did not take steps under its domestic authorities to prosecute terrorist leaders residing in Pakistan. The reports further noted that Pakistan made limited progress on the most difficult aspects of its 2015 National Action Plan to counter terrorism.
Pakistani deep state has managed to build a worldwide infrastructure of, I would say, organized crime. And they are beneficiaries of this kind of thing. I don't think internal institutions of Pakistan are in a position to restrain them. They have managed to brainwash their whole generations, and they believe that Pakistani dabbling with terrorism and organized crime is something which enhances the glory of Islam. A very strong pocket of Islamic radicalism they have managed to create where no questions are asked.
While Pakistan remained on the FATF's grey list, several top terrorists, including Hafiz Saeed, Sajid Mir, Zaki-ur-Rahman Lakvi, Masood Azhar, and Abdul Rahman Maki, were still able to successfully hide. There is a general consensus among security experts that many of these UN-designated terrorists run sham charity organizations which act as a facade to collect funds, which ultimately are used to promote terrorism and Islamic radicalization. These terrorists enjoy the patronage of Pakistan's security agencies, who use these outfits as their proxies. The United States and India, both victims of terrorism, are trying hard to eliminate terrorism by sanctioning its perpetrators. Both the US and India are making efforts to blacklist these terrorists under the 1267 Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee of the UN Security Council.
Many members of the Security Council, including the United States, have adopted our own sanctions against the terrorists behind these attacks. But our accountability efforts are more effective when we act together, which is why we've worked with India to put forward nominations to designate several terrorists through the UN 1267 committee.
Unfortunately, China, an all-weather friend of Islamabad, places holds and blocks on bids by India and its allies to list Pakistan-based terrorists on the list. Despite obstacles created by China and Pakistan, India's fight against terrorism and its perpetrators blazes forward.